For today's episode, I'm joined by Benjamin Hees, who's the founder of the global citizen publication on Substack. And in this episode, we'll talk all about how Benjamin managed to become a Substack bestseller and how he has turned his Substack into multiple streams of revenue. Benjamin, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Hey, Jerry, how's it going?
So, can you talk a little bit about what your Substack is about?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the overall topic is global mobility. That's like the term that people should know when they research the topic of moving abroad. But in plain terms, it's about how people can move abroad to different countries, how they get the right visa for the situation, what countries match their lifestyle, their finances, their political preferences, that kind of thing. I think that's in a nutshell.
How did you decide on that topic, actually? How did you land on that?
Actually, I'm from a high tax country, which is Germany. So I'm originally from Germany. And I was always interested to move abroad and how these whole setups work. Like moving to a different country is not just booking a flight, right? It's also about taxes and what kind of documents you need and all that stuff. So the whole systems behind moving abroad was always is interesting to me, of course. So I looked all that up and I made the move. I actually moved to Australia 2 years after I finished high school. That was my first move. So I had the first, exposure to how to figure out the right visa. And then when I moved to Cyprus 5 years ago, I researched everything. I was like, wow, this is so interesting. Like how everything works in terms of, there's this tax system and this tax system and this visa. And this is only for these kind of people. That was just like, I could not stop reading about it. And then I did the whole thing. Like I moved from Germany to Cyprus to UAE and I got different residencies and I was like always into that topic, but I never thought about writing about it because I had so many other things to do. But then when I had someone sitting beside me at the co-working space in Bangkok, he said, "Ben, I asked you so many questions about UAE because he wanted to get a golden visa." Actually, that's Ollie, the guy you also know.
Yeah, we had him on the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then he was like, "Benny, you should start a Substack." And I was like, "What's that?" And I said, he talked about his Substack, which has, 70,000 followers. Yeah, and I just started for fun. And I was like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to talk about because that's the topic I'm interested in. And yeah, that's how it got started.
When you just got started on Substack, what were some of the, like looking back at it now, right? What were some of the mistakes you made early on?
I think the biggest mistake was I wrote for all kinds of audiences. So I wrote for people who are young who want to move abroad, who are a bit older who want to move abroad. I wrote about, a whole bouquet of things for a whole bouquet of people, but not for a specific enough person. I think that was one of the mistakes. The other one, I just thought about what I find interesting most, which is taxes, and not really what else would be interesting for someone who wants to move abroad. Like there's more than just taxes, right? So I just talked about that at the start, and then I kind of looked at what people actually want to read about, and I went more into the topics, of what people want to read about more when they move abroad.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I think it's natural when you first get started with content creation in general that you just create what you are interested in, right? That's the starting point, but then over time you develop more, especially as you build an audience. You're looking at, okay, who am I actually writing for and what are they most interested in? And I think when you can make that switch from just what you are interested in to, hey, what does my audience need and want and what are they interested in? That's really when you accelerate like your growth. Is that something you noticed that the moment you focused more on who is my audience and what do they want and need, that's when things started like speeding up?
Yeah, and also just when you said that, it just reminded me where they are at. Because when you know something really well, you're like, hey, I know all this stuff. So you talk about something that might be super easy for you, but for them, it's like, I don't even like, for example, residencies was one thing. And that was my fourth post. That was actually the post that started my growth, I would say. But then some people started asking, what is a residency? Like, oh, I didn't explain that. Like, what's the difference between a passport, a residency, a visa, and then all these nuances? They're so clear to you or for you in terms of content creation, right? You know, all these abbreviations. And then I was like, oh, I need to go a step back and think, how far is a person in their journey of knowing when they want to move abroad, what all these things mean? And then you can write something way more basic for them, which when I write, I'm like, I can't post that. Like everyone knows that. Like, for example, I don't know what post it was exactly. I think it was about bank accounts. It was really recent. It was like, yeah, the 3 bank accounts you need abroad. It's like everyone knows that. I was like, I'm going to try it out. And I had like 20 comments like, oh, that was so helpful. And how do you do that? How do you do that? I was like, man, I have to think more about how far are they in their journey and then write something that is a bit basic for me, but for them, it's really a revelation. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think this is very common, right? This is a bit of the curse of knowledge, where if you are deep into your subject, your topic, you know so much about it, you might automatically assume most other people know about the basics as well. While it's actually like in your case, right? Someone is maybe looking to move abroad, maybe retire abroad somewhere with better climate, maybe a better tax climate or a better government, whatever. It's so complicated, right? Getting started with that is like very intimidating. You don't know maybe even which country to pick, how to make those first moves. It's actually those basics or things you find basic that probably your audience is like, how do we do this, right? I need help with this. And I think that goes for any topic. Um, I remember when I had my productivity newsletter as well, it was the basic productivity tips that actually went
Hmm.
viral and that actually sold the best and people were most interested in. And I was like, wait, but like everyone knows this, right? But that's just not the
Yeah.
case. It's like when you are so deep into your topic, you might have been studying it for years already. To you, it's basic, but to most other people, that's exactly the thing they're looking for, what they subscribe for, and what they actually pay for.
Exactly. And I mean, you still have the chance to, I mean, when you go into my publication, I probably didn't do it in that sequence where I talk about easy things and then more complicated things. I probably did it the other way around. But if you do that, they can learn in your publication. They basically go through that journey. They start with something that is basic and you can still write your complicated stuff. And then when you write the complicated stuff, you're like, hey, if this is new to you, you can read this article. For example, if I talk about banking in, I don't know, in Asia, for example, and they're like, oh, banking in Asia, I don't even know how I bank abroad. And then you link that article about banking and they're like, oh, cool, I can read that and that. And you can just cross reference everything. And then it becomes more like yeah, basically like a book, where you
Yeah.
go back and forth between between your posts, and I think that's really valuable. I really appreciate that when I read that on Substack, when someone explains something and then it's like, oh, I don't really know what that means, and then there's an article linked because that person assumes there will be people who don't know what that means. So I'm like, oh, that's really helpful. Yeah.
Yep, that's a great point. It's not that you now only need to focus on those basics. Like you still definitely want to write about the advanced stuff as well. It's probably that the majority of your content should maybe touch upon the fundamentals, the basics of your topic. But then you will have people in your audience who are maybe further along and they're actually looking for the nitty-gritty, the advanced stuff. So having that available for them while linking to the basic articles maybe as well. I think that's the best mix of it all. It also helps you, I think, position you as really an authority and expert in your field because it's like, hey, I don't just tackle these basic things, which might be easier for people to replicate, but you also have these very advanced articles on like deep banking in Asia, for example, like you said, right? I think that really builds your credibility and authority in your field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, Benjamin, you are also part of our private Substack coaching program, and I was wondering, like, what made you decide to invest in getting support rather than like figuring Substack out on your own?
Yeah. I think everyone comes to that point. I don't know if everyone comes to that point. I came to that point where I was like, I know I have knowledge. Like on the left side, I have knowledge. And then I see other people who have knowledge in a different field and they do all these things. But you only see the surface areas. You're like, okay, they have courses and products and coachings and whatever, and maybe YouTube channel. But in between, they the point where they started until they had that, they did a sequence of things in the right order, or probably in the wrong order, but in the end, it added up to the right sequence. And I was like, I don't know that sequence. I was like, I can do Instagram, I can do LinkedIn, I can do Substack, I can do YouTube, I can do school, I can do coachings, I can do digital products, I can't do anything. I think, but I don't know what I should focus on now. Like, what's the thing I should focus on now? And even that's the selling part, but what kind of topics I should focus on within the content, for example, is that something I should figure out first, or does it come after, or does it come simultaneously? So I had all these questions. I was like, okay, now I need someone who has done that before and who I can trust. And I was like, okay, I see you guys all the time. And I was like, yeah, I think these guys know what they're doing. And they also seem really, trustworthy. So I reached out, and was an easy sell for me.
What I loved about our first call together, when you first started working with us, is that you were so prepared. Like, you had the whole like document. These are my goals. This is what I want to achieve. These are the ideas I have. Now I just need your help with, indeed, what do I start with first? What's logical? What are my blind spots? And I was like, man, Benjamin is such a cool guy. It's like so easy to work with. And to me, that's the most fun as well, right? To work with someone who's motivated, who's like actually like also taking a lot of action. Like, I would describe you as a true action taker. And I think it doesn't like it didn't came to as a surprise to me when you send me that screenshot of like, hey, I'm a bestseller now. And I was like, of course you are. Of course you're a
with,
bestseller.
with your help, you know?
Yeah, it was mostly you, Benjamin. I'll give the credits to you. And I mean,
Yeah.
your publication right now is at about 2,000 subscribers, right? Something along those lines.
It's 2024, so I'm trying to get
Mhm.
it to 2026 until tomorrow, so two more. So because it's 2026,
Nice.
but yeah, that's where it is now. Yeah, and I think 116 paid, I think, or 115 or 16. Yeah,
Which is really impressive, right? That's like a conversion rate of 5%, even slightly higher than 5%, which is really impressive. And it shows that what you do with your paid Substack is really valuable. People are really interested in it. What would you say, if you had to describe it yourself, was your biggest factor that helped you become a Substack bestseller? So to reach that 100 plus paying subscriber mark.
yeah. I think. I mean, it's hard to describe exactly what factors were in because I mean, the people should tell me that, right? But what I heard from subscribers mostly was it's really specific. So if you go into that field of global mobility, there's a lot of stuff out there which people talk about in terms of, hey, I moved to that country and oh, it's nice, there's sunshine here, I go to the hospital. Like it's all true, but it's not really actionable or specific. And I really like specifics. That's what you saw when you described the preparation. What exactly do I need to do? So, for example, my longest article was about residency in Mexico, which was 6,000 words, I think. And I don't even know how long didn't know how long Substack articles should be. But when I researched it, it was like, yeah, 2,000 words maybe. So that was 3 times the length. But if you read them, there's everything is in there. So it's you only need that article, and I think that's one point. Like when you read the articles, they're really detailed. So that was one thing. Another thing that I did was a series of articles of how Americans can move abroad for Canada, Ireland, Mexico, and Portugal. And I did all of them in 1 month in September. And then on top of that, I did a promotion where you pay 70% instead of 100% for the yearly subscription. And that at the same time just brought everything up a lot. I think that was one. Um, what else? I think notes was another thing. So I didn't really post notes before, not many, or maybe randomly. And now I schedule 3 notes per day. And I also think about when I schedule the notes, what time zone other people in and what state of mind will they probably be in? Will they be in the morning or at midday or in the evening? Like most of the audiences in America. Um, and then when I think about when I read in the morning, should it be long? Should it be easy digestible? When do I have time to read something longer? And then stuff like that, like just thinking what does the person need at that moment of time, and then the notes was another factor which actually drove a lot of subscriptions. Yeah,
I really want to emphasize what you just said there because I think it shows how you are really focused on your audience. You take an audience first approach, right? The fact that in September, you wrote that series of articles specifically for people in the US to relocate to different countries in the world. You are not from the US yourself, right? But most of your audience is, and you know that the majority of your audience is from the US and they are most interested in moving to Canada, Mexico, Portugal, and I think you mentioned another country.
Uh, well, yeah, Mexico, Canada, Portugal, Ireland, UK is another one. New Zealand, Spain, Greece, Malta, and yeah, there's guides
Mhm.
for all of them out there. Hmm.
But you created this specifically for your audience. You weren't like, oh, what am I interested in right now that I'm gonna write basically for myself? Like, yes, obviously you're interested in this topic, right? That's the most important thing. You have a passion for this topic, but you're really approaching it with a mindset of what would my audience need the most and create that as paid content for them. And then it's a no-brainer that people are like, hey, this is exactly what I need. So let me upgrade to paid, right? Because this is exactly what I need. So it's a no brainer. And I think that's a mindset maybe more Substack creators should adopt if they're looking to really like monetize their Substack, is look at A, who is my audience? B, what problems do they have? Do they experience? What pain points do they have? What goals and objectives do they have? And how can my paid content or my paid offers help them exactly with that?
Exactly. And also, I mean, I started at the beginning. I emailed every subscriber, free or paid, and said, "Hey, what are your biggest questions?" And I wrote that email and with the name and everything. I did copy and paste. I just wrote everything. I can't do that anymore because that's all I would do by now. But I just asked them, and then every comment that someone wrote, I was like, okay, how can I reply in a way that I find out more? And then every time someone asked something, that was going on a list. Like every single feedback, every single comment was going on a list. This is a question. Is this a thank you? Is this a critique? Sometimes happens as well. Um, and then I was like, okay, what can I do with that? What can I do with that? How can I answer that? How can I create an article? How can I create a note? And then, yeah, patterns emerge. Like people ask the same things, and you can like, oh, I had that question before. I can send that article that I did based on that first question I got about that thing. Now I got it again, and then when I get it again and again and again, it's like, oh, I can create a product. Like you can do so many things with these things. And then also, for example, what was really helpful was the move abroad checklist, which is the free lead magnet I have, where you basically 20 things that you need to do before you move abroad. I was like, what can people who are, because it's an overwhelming topic, you move abroad. Most people do that once in their lifetime. I did it many times, but many people are like, oh, I do that once. And they're really scared of that. So what can I create which alleviates that feeling of being scared? I was like, oh, a checklist, 20 things you need to do. If you do those, and if you can do those, then you can move. Like, wow, perfect. And I created that and then sent it to everyone. And then, yeah, basically alleviating the fear of people, putting myself in their shoes. What do they think about? What can I create in terms of content? And then engage, answer every single comment. If they ask something, give them value right away. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's a good point about the also getting in a conversation with your audience, right? Like getting to know exactly the person that you're writing for, that you're speaking to. What are they thinking? What are their limiting beliefs? What do they want, right? The better you understand your audience, the better you can make sure your content fits with them, your products fits with them, your paid Substack fits with them. And this is a lot of time and effort you put into it because it's one-on-one conversations, but I also think it's something you have to do in the beginning first. Then you have a solid understanding. You start recognizing those patterns. And then maybe you maintain it from time to time to make sure you are still like aligned with your audience. But doing this in the early stages is going to be really important, right? And then you'll spot patterns on, oh, this is actually what my audience want, what they want and what they need. And when you know that, that's such valuable information. You can also do like short surveys, for example, within your Substack post. You can add a very short survey. We do this in, I would say, about like a third of our posts. We have a very short survey, just one question with a multiple choice answer, just so
Mhm.
we continuously gather data on our audience, right? What they're working on, what they're struggling with, maybe what their objectives are for the new year, for example. Because the more you know about your audience, the better you can serve them. And it makes all the difference.
Yeah, I do that actually in every post. I have at least one poll, which is really easy. I'm like, oh, I'm not really sure what people think about that on that topic. And yeah, people just click. I mean, it's one click, right? Who doesn't do that click? Many people just do. And then you have way more data points. And I think it's a win-win. The more you understand your audience, the better post you can write for your audience, and the more engage your audience, because like it's back and forth. It's not just for the audience, it's also for you, because you're going to write more specifically and you're going to get more subscribers because you understand them better. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's indeed co-creation, right? It's like you're not just a one-way channel, you're sending content their way, but it's like now you're communicating with them, you're co-creating with your audience, and you're basically building the publication that the both of you want, which I think is very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Now, Benjamin, you are monetizing your Substack not only with paid subscriptions, but also in other ways. You have multiple revenue streams attached to your Substack. Can you break those down a little bit?
Yeah. So paid subscription is one. And I started, I mean, I'm still new. I don't know if the audience knows that, but it's only been 8 months. So I haven't done that much in terms of building products, but I have built one paid product, which is the Expert Country Decision Kit, which I learned is the Tripwire product, I think it's called, where it's not that
Yep.
expensive. It's like an impulse buy kind of thing. So I have that digital product, and I launched it, I think, a couple of months back. Um, and yeah, the paid subscriptions, and now I'm building a program which is a really comprehensive high ticket one. Yeah, and in between there will be other things that I still have in mind what I want to do. But for now, it's basically the paid subscriptions, the one digital product, and then the high ticket one. But I'm building the high ticket one now, and there's so many things in it. Oh man, this has to be a different product. This has to be, and I already almost drift to build these things. Like, no, come back to that thing, because that's the comprehensive product that people really need to do everything. But I already have like 3, 4 ideas of what I want to do based on the big one. But that's actually something I noticed, which I should have done at the beginning. Back to your first question. If you really know your audience, which I do now, and you build something super comprehensive, like a big high ticket product, you automatically build the other ones, because you can just carve out some of them. Because now I have, for example, I have 4 pillars in that product. I'm like, yeah, those 4, some people are only interested in 1 or 2 because they have figured the other ones out. So I could just take them out and just build something else. And I should have done that earlier. That would have saved some time, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like a bigger program. In your case, I know you have your high ticket coaching or consulting program, which really helps someone like all the way from just getting started to basically setting them up for success for their move abroad. But in between, there's tiny steps, right? And each of those tiny steps could be turned into maybe a low ticket digital product as well, or a program of its own, which is definitely interesting, I think, for your publication to start doing in the future for sure. But let's talk a little bit about pricing wise. What
Mhm.
like your Substack, your paid Substack, what pricing structure do you have there, and your low ticket digital product and your high ticket program? What's the pricing structure you have?
Yeah. So the Substack application is $15 a month and $100 per year. So I think that's 40% discount on the yearly and the annual plan. The digital product, the first one is $47, and it was on sale for 27 for the first 50 as a kind of one-off. And the high ticket one starts now at $5,000. So yeah, there's a big gap in between the digital product and the high ticket one, and I already have ideas for the ones in between. But for now, those are the price points. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a smart thing to do, right? Because with your paid tier and the low ticket digital product, they are really good entry point offers, right? Someone who might have just discovered you through a Substack note, they can actually purchase your low ticket digital product or your paid tier pretty quickly, right? It's not something you have to think twice about. But once someone is a paying customer, they are so much more likely to buy something from you again, which could also be your high ticket coaching program, because now you've basically moved the relationship from just being a reader, a free reader, to like actually a paying customer, and that brings so much more trust, trust, and this feeling of a connection with you that really helps with high ticket sales. And especially because I know your products, your offers are super in depth, super valuable. It's not like you are offering something that doesn't deliver. I would say you actually over deliver, right? And that builds a lot more trust with your customers. And that's how I would recommend, if you're serious about monetizing your Substack, I would say see the paid tier, the paid Substack, just as the starting point of monetization, not as the end point of monetization. See it as a way to turn free readers into first time customers, for example, and then monetize with those two different ways. One, a digital product that can sell on autopilot, right? That um, could be tools, a template, could be a mini course, could be a workshop that you sell on autopilot, just so you have that 24/7 sales machine turned on, and then have a high ticket coaching program attached attached to it as well.
Mm,
Because there will always be people who are like, I know you, I trust you, I want to pay for the shortcut, I don't want to do it myself or figure it out myself. I want you to like look over my shoulder and make sure I get the
yeah,
best possible outcome in the shortest time possible. And they are willing and able to pay a premium for it. And all you would need, also in your case, with a 5K coaching program, you only need one or two new clients per month to have a really solid income from your Substack already.
totally. Yeah. And the way you just described that was, that's me. I want the shortcut. And when for example, that's the same with you guys. It's like, okay, what do these guys offer? Okay, what's the highest program? Because I really want to save time and I want someone to talk to in person and show them my stuff and for them to see it. I want to do a course. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want. That's why I assume people want the same for the other topics, right? So it makes total sense to have that product. And another thing I think, I don't know yet, but if you talk to a lot of people one-on-one, which I'm planning to do, then you can build the other things easier because you know exactly what they ask. If you have 20 or 50 clients in one-on-one, then you can it's way easier to build a comprehensive course because you can have all these thoughts and yeah, things that people will ask. And you can put that into the thing that you sell on autopilot instead of um, thinking about what would they might ask. You know exactly what they will ask because you had all these people in the one-on-one program.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the best ways to gather data about your audience and specifically the people who pay you, right? What are they struggling with? You can spot the patterns and then turn those patterns into standalone digital products 100%. Now,
Yeah.
Benjamin, if someone is brand new to Substack, but they want to use the platform to really build their business, not just have Substack as a hobby, but as a business, what
Mhm.
would you recommend that they focus on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of talk. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on Substack where you can learn what to do, and then it's really easy to try to do everything. Like there's advice on how to do notes, there's advice on how to do, and I mean, good advice, right? But I would probably pick fewer inspirations because sometimes you try to do everything at once and you try to do all those 10 note strategies and all those 10 how to structure Substack posts. And then, oh, someone says, oh, you have to do this product. Someone says you have to do this product. And then you're like, okay, now if I do all of that, it's not possible. So if I would pick fewer people I follow in terms of taking action on the Substack, it's like, okay, this is the guy for courses. This is one, maybe there's a guy for everything. And then just focus on that one and try this one out and see if it works. And then maybe try someone else because there's a lot of publications talking about how to do Substack. And yeah, I mean, of course, I recommend Write, Build, Scale. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's one thing I would do. Another thing I would do is if you write about something that you give advice to, like to people who are new in your field, I would probably focus on the person that you were 2 or 5 years ago. For example, that's something I should have done. It's like, okay, someone is reading that. That's you 5 years ago. What did you think about 5 years ago? What were your questions? And then you come back to that point where you're like, okay, I thought about these things that are really natural and basic to me now, but at that time they weren't. So I should talk about them. Um, Another thing I noticed is what really worked for me, at least, is talking about lived experience. So if you talk about something that you actually did, like in terms of stories, that resonates with people more than when you're like, okay, what's hot in global mobility now? And then you take some quote and you put that quote there. It's like, okay, anyone can put that quote there. But if you talk about, I don't know, last week I lost my passport in Turkey and this is how I got it back. And this is what you can learn from that. Then it's like, oh, that person actually did that. So the more you can introduce your lived experience into your writing, the more trustworthy it is because you actually did that, right? That's another thing. The last thing I would say, I mean, that's a quote I'm stealing. It's not mine, but be impatient with actions, but be patient with results. Okay, I got it right. So yeah, the first 2 months when I wrote my stuff, I mean, a couple of people read it, but not many. I had 63 subscribers. But I still wrote high quality stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's going to compound at some point. And then it took months, but then all of a sudden it did. But the posts that I posted months ago, people read them now. So they have to be, well, they can't just start being good when you start getting traction. They have, because people come back to the stuff that you wrote before. So yeah, that's another thing I would do.
That's really how I would describe you as well. Because whenever we're on a coaching call, and usually it ends with like, okay, these are the next things to focus on, the next action points to take. Can you do that before the next call? And you're like, yeah, sure I can. And then like a day later, I usually get a text from you like, hey, done. Can you check it out? And I'm like, this guy, man, he's so productive. But then on the long term, you really have this vision that you're building towards. And I feel like the decisions you make are based on how can my Substack publication and overall business be a long-term asset and not make as much money as quickly as possible. But you're really building something for the future while you are taking action really quickly. So I love that you share that quote. Um, I think it's so important, right? Indeed, be impatient with your actions, but patient with your results, because there it takes time to build an audience. It takes time to figure out what offers work well and what doesn't. It takes time to build the trust to get your first high ticket coaching client. But it requires like doing on a daily basis, making little tweaks, little adjustments here and there, learning quickly. So some speed on the short term, basically, and patience on the long term.
Yeah, I mean, it takes longer than you plan to anyway. I mean, whatever plan you make in your head, it's going to take twice as long at least. So you might as well do as much as you can, as quickly as you can to speed it up, because it's going to take longer than you want anyways. But if you don't put in the time, and if you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that tomorrow, then it's going to take even longer, and you're impatient already. So at least when you do something daily and you just take action every day and it takes longer, you can always say, hey, I did everything I could, even if it takes longer now. There's nothing more I could have done without compromising health or relationships or whatever. So yeah.
Mm. So now that you have reached that Substack bestseller status, what is your main focus for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so the next 6 to 12 months will be mostly focused on the high ticket offer. So I'm building it now, and I mean, it's going to be super comprehensive, and I have a lot of rabbit holes I want to go into. So that will be probably the biggest focus for the next 6 months, I would say. And then based on that, I want to do some cohort programs, but I need the knowledge from the one-on-ones to actually hold them. So that will probably be more a 6 to 12 month something. Yeah, and apart from that, to learn everything when it comes to online business, because I have no idea about that. We talked about that. I don't know anything about, I mean, I do now, but email sequences, marketing, sales, that the magic is in the DMs, like all these things are new to me. So every time I find something, and I mean, you helped me to do the first email sequence, basically what button to push, because I was like, oh, can I do that? Can I do that? I have no idea about this stuff. So every time I do something, it takes longer anyways, because first I have to figure out what I have to do. Then I have to figure out how to learn that thing. And then I have to actually do it. Because for me, everything is a first in online business. So, yeah, that's, I mean, the high ticket thing is one thing, but then learning all the other things, and even the things I don't know yet that I should be doing. There's probably some things as well where I'm like, oh, I should have done that 6 months ago. Some will come up. Yeah. But I also, I always get really, I get really intense when there's a new topic. Like I just can't let it go until I understand it. So once something pops up where I'm like, I don't understand it, and I can't help but trying to figure it out. And so I haven't figured that out. I'm going down that rabbit hole. So we'll see what else comes up in the next 6 to 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be a really good year for your publication and your business, because the way you are implementing, the way you're making progress and taking action and really moving fast, right? I think 2026 is going to be an amazing year for for you, for your publication, with all the offers you're building and the growth momentum that you're on right now. So I'm really looking forward to working closely together with you over those next few months, and see the progress you're going to make even more.
Thanks, man. Me too.
So, Benjamin, where should people go if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah. So if you are on Substack, you can just search for Digital Citizen. That's my publication. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, Benjamin Hies. That's Hies. And yeah, that's it. That's my two. I mean, you can go on Instagram, but there's not much going on there. So that would be the two main channels. Yeah.
We'll link to that in the show notes for people to check out. I really want to thank you, Benjamin, for sharing your insights here with us today. It's super helpful. Again, I'm very excited to see where your business, your publication is going to go in 2026. And yeah, once again, thanks for sharing all your insights here with us today.
Thanks, Jerry. It was fun.